of writing about prayer and seeking God and going to all kinds of lengths to reach out and connect with this life called spiritual. You know, it's an active prayer life calls a person out into the world. Not to sit back and let others do their work, but to go out into the world like Simeon, who came to the temple on a regular basis to seek God's promise. I don't know how many times Simeon came to that temple. Luke doesn't share that with us. He just shares with us that he was known as a righteous and devout man coming to the temple. And you notice that Joseph and Mary are also righteous and devout people trying to follow the letter of the law and bringing their child, the firstborn, to the temple to be blessed by the priest, to offer up a sacrifice. So they didn't quit when Jesus was born. They kept on going to the temple. And I know this, that when Simeon was looking out for ways and means to actively bring out Christ, to find the one who's going to be the Messiah of the world, that God's plans came together in that moment. If you hear what he said, you'll notice that he included the Gentiles also. This is going to be the one who is going to bring the nations together, Simeon said. He knew that this sight would mean he could go home now in peace, and that he could go home and get ready to die. But I don't think he did that. I think Simeon knew that he could go home and not have to come into the temple anymore, but I don't think he went home and watched the chariot races on TV or anything like that. I think he went home and to the synagogue that he went out to and sat in day after day under the fig tree maybe, and said, "The Messiah has come. The Messiah has come." And continued to say that, even though people thought he was too old. He did not, though, you notice, stay in the synagogue or even travel with Mary and Joseph to make sure that things were okay. He knew now that he had made this proclamation that things were in God's hands and life would be the way God wanted it to be. But that's not easy for us. It's not easy to watch my son deal with his children. I wasn't kidding the children here. I think that it's my job to spoil those grandchildren. And I do every opportunity I get. But my son tells me, "Dad, I can't handle them when they come home." I say, "Well, that's your problem." You know, it's not mine. But it is my problem. It is my problem. Those children need to have the stories and the lessons of my growing up, the things that I missed from my father's and my mother's history. Not having a grandfather. Well, I had grandfathers, but I never met them. When you miss that, you know that it's so important when you get to be our age. That grandchildren are one of the most important things in our lives. But we're not always prepared to work with them or to deal with them. I can't bend down to tie Samuel's shoelaces anymore. And I've been told that when I go up to visit with him this next week, that I have to bring my baseball glove and shag flies. I've got news for them. I'm bringing my baseball glove, but Mariella, his sister, is going to be doing the shagging. I'm going to throw it back in, but she's going to be doing all the shagging. But Simeon left Mary and Joseph with advice. And that's all we can do with our children, isn't it? We can't grow up for them. We can't do everything for them. There has to be a point in time in which we leave our children within God's hands. And I don't know when that is. I don't know if it's when they're 18 or when they're 25 or when they're 30. Or I think I've told you the story of when I was 40. Going through my divorce, I went back home to Canada for a mini reunion with my 4 sisters and my mother. And we were sitting there, and one of my sisters, and my youngest sister, who's 8 years older than I am, in her house in Calgary. And the oldest sister, Barbara, said, Sam, I was going out to meet one of my friends that I graduated with from high school in Calgary. I was going out we were in the south end and going to the North Hill, had to ride buses and a train and all kinds of things to get up there. Oldest sister said, well, Sam, do you know where the bus stop is? Yes, Barbara, I know where the bus stop's at, just down the corner here. The second sister, Marie, said, well, Sam, do you have money for a bus ticket? Yes, Marie, I have money for a bus ticket, not a problem whatsoever. My third sister, Artie, said, well, Sam, do you know that when you get downtown here now, they've got the new train, and you have to get a transfer, and you have to get that transfer ticket to get onto the train. I said, yes, Artie, I know that you have to have a transfer ticket to get onto the train for the North Hill. I know what train number it is and everything, no problem at all. And my sister, Pat, who is the youngest, fourth sister now, she says, well, Sam, if you get into any trouble, do you have my phone number? Yes, Pat, I have your phone number. And Mom, before you say anything, I also have on clean underwear and a quarter in my pocket to call you. It doesn't matter, does it? But Simeon and Anna knew that it was time and it was okay that Joseph and Mary were going to take Jesus out of that temple. And that they could now go on home themselves. It's not easy to leave things into God's hands because we want to control that which seems out of control. Our bodies no longer work the way they used to do. We can't lose weight like we did when we were 30 or 40, and we sure can't run as far if we can run at all. But Simeon made his statement and then bowed out. He had guided Mary and Joseph just as much as he could with his statements of blessing and curse regarding the sword that would pierce Mary's soul. And mentoring is important, but it's guiding and not doing for or interfering. And so when I ask these children to adopt a grandparent, it is for that mentoring process, for you to tell them the stories of God in your life, to tell them the stories of how you see God working in your life and in this church. And it's mentoring. And you can't do it because the mentee, if that's a word, the mentee, sometimes doesn't do it exactly the way that we would like them to do. My friend Maurice Davis is an expert carpenter. And he will tell you today that the bookcase that he came over to help me build in the study of our house, he will tell you that he could have done it within 2 days, but with the expert help that he had, it took him 4. Simeon and Anna also worked together on this project. As Luke reminds us that the coming of the Christ and the Messiah was going to mean a new way of doing things in the world. Not only would Jew and Gentile be acceptable within this new kingdom, but men and women were now going to play cooperatively in this new program. This was not going to be just male-dominated, but it was going to be a partnership that was first lost in the Garden of Eden. And you can see this going all the way back to the Garden of Eden, that now men and women would be cooperating. And while Simeon made the declaration that this was the child, the Messiah of God, it was Anna who went out into the courtyard and said, "He's here. The new Messiah has been born and has been dedicated according to the prophets and the law." And so it was Anna, the prophet, who went out and told and becomes the well-deserved reputation of being the holy